shots there of the sun rising over Kingston City, and it is 6:18 in the morning. If you're just joining us, you're just in time for our Tuesday headlines with TK.
Hey. Hello again. We're going to jump right in. Let's jump right into the headlines and see what's been happening. So Portmore to be center for high technology and innovation for Jamaica and the Caribbean. So Prime Minister Andrew Holness has announced plans to develop Portmore St. Catherine into the Silicon Valley of Jamaica and a key technology hub for the Caribbean. Speaking during a political meeting at the Hart Academy in Portmore recently, Andrew Holness outlined that the initiative aims to enhance regional innovation and create jobs in digital industries while pursuing parish status for Portmore. Holness highlighted the area's young workforce and its existing BPO sector as assets for building a modern technological ecosystem. His recent trip to India facilitated partnerships with the Indian Institute of Technology to support training in high-tech skills. The initiative will focus on expanding beyond traditional BPO roles to include high-skill positions in programming and software development. So that's interesting.
You know what we don't lack in Jamaica?
Tell me.
Is talent. We don't lack talent.
Preach.
Yeah. And what we also don't lack in Jamaica is a set of young people who are ambitious.
Yes.
And who are also... What's interesting is the current generation that will be heading into the workforce don't know their world without internet. They don't know a world without tech. And so we have to move with the times as the entire world is doing, right? So I like the conversation. I think a lot of other conversations have to happen as we discuss a Silicon Valley, like the education system and how that will be tailored to meet the needs of a more tech-savvy future. And I think also conversations happen about bringing tech into the country and accessing tech in a lower taxed type of way to encourage access. These conversations have to happen as we have that conversation. It has to be a simultaneous conversation.
What I agree 100%, and what I like about where this is going is that there's conversation, as you say, and plans for higher skilled workers.
Right.
So it's not a situation where, here are these first world nations, but they need cheap labor.
Right.
We're going to go to Jamaica, pay the people nothing, treat them like nothing,
right,
and get these millions of dollars into our companies outside of the country.
Correct.
And so the fact that it's a higher skilled workforce, and hopefully there is some talks about the treatment of the people when they are working in the Silicon Valley that is to come.
Yeah. I definitely feel like we need to also look at how education marries the future plans as well. Like, it can't just be when you leave high school, then you jump into a particular thing. Like, I know there's a lot of conversation around STEM and STEAM programs and integrating those into the current curriculum in high schools. But what does it truly look like to have these type of conversations about what the plans are for Portmore?
Yeah. So interesting times, interesting plans. We'll see if the plans are executed. And I look forward to a time when there's just tons and tons of opportunities that were not available before.
Correct.
You know
what is interesting though, and I feel like I've said this so many times in the last few weeks, it is so critical how we relate to other nations.
Yes.
And
the trip that this came out of, or helped, out of a trip out of India.
Correct. So when you see travels happening and when you see these meetings happening, these are the types of things that we would like to see coming out of these travels and these meetings. Because how does it benefit the citizens of our nation? How does it advance our nation? And again, there are certain natural resources that we have and certain skill sets that we have and others that we don't. So when you think of India, you think of tech.
Yes,
they are
absolutely
the leaders in tech. So it would make sense that we could have a mutually beneficial arrangement there.
Yeah, that's a great thing to highlight.
Yeah.
Great thing to highlight. All right, so next up, Crown Prince of Norway to visit Jamaica on climate change and poverty mission. So His Royal Highness Crown Prince Haakon of Norway will visit Jamaica from November 18 to 2024 as a global goodwill ambassador for the UNDP. His visit aims to observe Jamaica's efforts, supported by Norway and UNDP, to enhance its ocean economy and strengthen resilience in vulnerable communities. He'll meet with local authorities, youth and community representatives to address issues related to oceans, climate change and poverty. Key activities include visiting the coastal community of Rocky Point to learn about the Blue Resilience Program and visiting Mount Airy to see rehabilitated water collection systems. He'll also engage with youth leaders at the University of the West Indies on nature-based solutions and climate action. Interesting. Interesting.
Very interesting. I know that we...
This is well, not the reverse, but this is one of the things that the travels and sharing of information looks like. So it's not always for us to go and see in their space, but it's also good, I guess, when people come and bring the knowledge and bring the information to us.
Yeah. However, you can say it. However. I think we're all thinking it. So say it.
I wish that sometimes some of the nations, let me not say these nations, because I really don't know the history well enough about Norway and how it works, but sometimes I wish some of these nations, just run us some money. You know why? Because I think that some of these nations were so instrumental in the poverty that we now experience that I find it fascinating that they come and say, here's how you handle the poverty that we and our ancestors brought upon your land. I think that's an interesting... I wish that they would have programs that elevated us versus coming and telling us how to
do an analysis of the cost, do an analysis of, what the pulling from the natural resources, what the slave trade would have, how it would have burdened the nation, and perhaps send that money back.
Yeah, man. Run
but no, I think we all thought it, because it's, as you say, it's an interesting conversation when particular nations come and say, we can help with poverty, but let's talk about how the poverty was even created. Let's start there, So it becomes a little uncomfortable. Now, we know that the persons who are trying to aid are not directly involved.
Correct.
Right? We're talking about history here, but it would be remiss of us not to be quite aware of the history.
And the conversations that are being had, I feel like, can sometimes be with the wrong people. So maybe you have conversations on how have we benefited billions and billions of dollars over the years from, exploitation, and how can we now, not at one time and put a burden on our economy and our people, but how can we now pay back some of that using the resources that we now have and the income that we're now generating because of these things? How can we send that back to some of these nations? But, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. We welcome you, Crown Prince.
But again, it begs the question, do you penalize the person who is now trying to perhaps right the wrongs of, of a not so pretty history, right? Do you look at that person and say, we don't want nothing, or do we say, you know what you're doing is right, because you know that we would have been in a much stronger position had certain invasions not happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's an interesting, the span of what they're looking at is very interesting, especially when it comes to the ocean economy.
Yeah.
That's very interesting for me, and I think it should be interesting to everyone who is fisher folk or who eat fish or who consume anything related to the ocean, which is all of us. And I think that in particular is where I'm interested to hear what has to be said.
Yeah. So we look forward to what comes out of it, and of course, we'll bring some updates. Yeah.
Yeah.
Last up, Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke to end his term at midnight tonight. So Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke announced he'll resign as Member of Parliament for St. Andrew Northwestern at midnight tonight, concluding his term as Finance Minister. He made the announcement during a Jamaica Labour Party rally, thanking Prime Minister Andrew Holness for his appointment. Clarke is set to join the International Monetary Fund as a Deputy Managing Director on October 31. Prime Minister Holness praised Clarke's technical competence in managing Jamaica's economic affairs and noted that Dwayne Smith, a local councillor, has been selected to replace him as the JLP representative for the constituency. He also praised Dr. Clarke, who has served as MP and Cabinet Minister since March 2018, highlighting his critical skills in managing economic change and his technical competence. Holness expressed that it's a distinct honor for the Jamaica Labour Party to have Clarke sought after for an international role. So we bid our finance minister adieu as of midnight.
And I think there's a collective thank you.
Yeah.
I think there is a collective thank you. When we think about the fact that we moved through the COVID pandemic, He's moved us to a particular position of reducing significant debts. He's moved us to a position of, you know, having better budget management, where we've recently been able to purchase our own buses without tapping into, you know, a loan of some sort. I feel like he may be the minister that across, regardless of being partisan or non-partisan or bipartisan or any party of any party or color, people will say, him know what him doing, you know, and people, I think most people can appreciate his appointment and say, boy, this is good for Jamaicans, to know that you can work really hard at something and you can be picked up and selected and noticed by these international organizations for your hard work and your contribution. And obviously your effectiveness, you know, so yeah. So
we've said it before, we'll say it again, all the best to Dr. Clark in his new appointment, on his new journey, you know, taking on his new challenges. We wish you all the best. Represent us well as you have been doing so far.
Yeah.
Oh
my gosh.
That's it for the headlines.
Oh, I really want to know who is going to be in place.
Well, we wait and see.
When will we know?
We wait and see.
Hopefully we know by tomorrow morning, because at the stroke of midnight, we don't know. All right, that's all we have for you in our headlines this morning. Coming up next, TK and I will be brushing up on our Japanese, which we are quite fluent in. We're not. We just aren't. Please stick and stay. We can do numbers.
I don't know anything.